Okay, good morning, Writing 394. This is Professor Anderson with part 2 of the discussions. So we were talking about, the formula and how to organize an executive summary. I think one thing that maybe intimidates students and or writers about the piece of paper called the executive summary is the word executive. Sort of makes it seem like it's super important. And while it is a very important piece of a larger research paper. For the reality is the executive summary is the boiled down version. You've already written the executive summary by the time you finished your paper, and or writing the executive summary serves as somewhat of an outline for the rest of your paper. So it kind of goes hand in hand, and one feeds the other or one feeds the other. So here we want to make sure that we set very directly what the problem is. We want to set very directly that we've done some research and these are what we found and these are the conclusions. Based on the research that we found, we've drawn these conclusions. This problem is significant for area A, B, and C. And so based on area A, B, and C, these are the recommendations. So that's what the executive summary needs to do. I like how you have set these apart. The recommendations should be highlighted or used in bullet points or keywords inside of the executive summary highlighted, because remember, the purpose of an executive summary is for a busy executive to summarize the problem. And if they can summarize the problem very quickly, get a very clear grasp of what the problem is from that initial paragraph, and then at the bottom see key words highlighted, they'll note very quickly the tie between the two. Here's the problem. Aha, these key words point directly to how we may be able to resolve the problem. So let's take a look at the next one, moving right along here. So here we have an example of, again, we want to make sure this is a component of the research-based report. It needs to go in the center, bold and large. And so here we have an important function of what the executive summary does is breaks issues down into components and sort of gives you a reflective lens of what the bigger paper is going to be like. So I recommend making sure you have those headings, like make sure you have that that initial problem. Here you have this section in here that talks about the research. This needs to be a full separated paragraph. And then at the end, where you have some recommendations, make sure to separate those into separate sections of your executive summary. I wonder if using subheadings might help, like the purpose of this, findings and conclusions, and recommendations. Those three key terms I find for me, it helps me to organize my writing where I need to go. All right, so let's take a look here. Next one. Whoops, I don't know why I'm doing that. Let's try and scroll this up. There we go. There's another example of using subheadings. Some argue hieroglyph. There we go. What I recommend is, here we go. We have it all organized into separate sections. We don't need these references below. I recommend taking out, do you see this? Some would argue one doesn't hire the best staff, but instead train the best team. Rephrase that. So one of the things, I'm just highlighting this one. I've seen it in pretty much all members of the class. So one of the things you want to avoid in a business report is what we call first person impressionable or inflammatory or emotionally laden speech. Now, inflammatory doesn't mean that it's lewd or anything like that. It just means that it shows the passion and emotion for a specific subject. So we are really writing an informative paper. While we're persuading based on our facts and based on our data, this is really an informative piece of writing or expository piece of writing. So we want to remove any suggestive language that may lean towards one element of emotional writing towards or the other. For example, assuming what the reader may know, or assuming offering a personal insight. One statement might be, as you well know. Well, we're not sure whether the person reading this really knows that or not. It might be very evident in the office space that A, B, or C is taking place. You want to avoid statements like that. So some would argue one doesn't hire the best staff, but instead they must be trained to be the best team. Now that sounds like a great summary of a quote from a larger piece of research, but perhaps it would, to be more direct and less emotionally driven, trained teams make the best staff. You're just, concretely describing that. So you can avoid these. Wow. Okay. I'm kind of catching myself in a catch-22 here. On the one hand, when you're directly quoting, yes, of course you need to insert your citations. On the other hand, the executive summary is small enough and/or enough of a summary, enough of a condensed version that it your citations can be noted at the end. So sorry about that. I had to go turn my soup down as I'm cooking in the middle of this. So I hope that that's helpful for you here. Looks like everything else is right in order. Highlighting those. This is awesome. I like how everybody took particular note of making sure to pull aside the recommendations. Here we go. Executive business summary. Let me see here. Here we go. All right. So the purpose and method of this report, Indian Fields 1 and 3, Carlisle, directly state what it is. There are problems arising from the Field Recreation Center at Carlisle. What other secondary research did you do? You want to make sure that you give insight into the secondary research, because the bottom line is, when you're handing this to a busy executive, while you are a key and important employee, all of you are, you need research outside of your business, outside of your industry. You need larger, published, peer-reviewed research to back what it is that you're saying. You might have a really brilliant idea, but a business executive will likely not make a decision on your brilliant idea. I know it's tragic. I wish they would do that, but they need to see, for bottom line purposes of a business and industry, they want to see how your suggestion or your data is supported in a much broader context. So here we go. When you have your recommendation statement, section, it's awesome to highlight these in a bullet point form or bold or something like that. But I also recommend a brief description of what it is that you're, let's see here, holding workplace complacency seminars. Recommendations to enhance employee performance, developing a professional development platform would develop or would enhance employee performance. These include, so you're just giving a tagline statement of what it is that your recommendations are. Let me see here. Let's go to this one. All right. So remember, I was talking about those emotionally laden statements. Gosh, I don't know why this is not sticking for too long. Adverb, like too long, but I stood idly by. Those are very, they're very emotionally laden. I would remove them. Instead, replace them with facts, hard facts. Smack much more realistically when deciding and determining problems. So since 1965, the company stood by watching idly in our workplace, our community, and the earth. Since 1965, our company has not. Our company was developed in 1965. I don't know when your company was. And since that time, we've not had a recycling problem. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I will need to make a third video. Yikes. Okay, let's stop this one. Come on. Here we go.